Guardians of the Galaxy does open today in all areas. The Thursday night previews and the numbers for Guardians of the Galaxy is what everybody's been wondering. A couple months ago, these were the headlines. Why Guardians of the Galaxy will be the kickstart the MCU needs. Well, this was all before we saw what the projections were for this movie. People assumed it was going to do completely fine. Maybe it wouldn't hit $1 billion, but there's no way that this movie could be as big of a disappointment as others that we've seen from Marvel lately, right? Not with the Guardians, not with James Gunn, not with, the final entry in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. But here we are, a few weeks later, we started to get the first projections that look like it could be kind of a flop. It might not make money. And then those projections continued to go down. And here we are, Jeremy. Guardians of the Galaxy tuning up for 105 plus domestic debut as summer's opening act. And yes, right now, the current projections are between $105 and $125 million domestic opening weekend. These are just projections. We've certainly seen projections be wrong. Not so much in the case of Marvel movies. They haven't been super way far off like they were from Mario. But if it's anywhere near these numbers, that spells a nightmare for Marvel.
Well, now, Ryan, I was told that because of mine and yours and others, our negativity towards a lot of these films, that we were the ones hurting the box office. It was our fault, okay? It was our fault. I have been consistently saying that Guardians is going to do $850 million. I've been saying, like, hey, I might have problems with, the MCU, but I like the Guardians movies and I like this universe, and I think it's going to do really good for them. Guess what? All that positivity couldn't save it. Oh, I guess it's not really my fault after all. Ultimately, as I've said, if this number holds, this is a big problem. Guardians is not the type of franchise. We know what it is. We know what it's about. We know the players involved. We kind of get the story. We kind of understand what's going on. This isn't the type of movie that is going to get people to just walk out of the cinema just raving about it. It's not going to have that Mario element to it. It's just not. Guardians needs to open at over 150 million. And if it doesn't, that is a massive problem. And what have we been saying? Marvel is on the decline. Guardians would be the outlier, but even Guardians doesn't seem to be able to overcome the downward trend of Marvel movies. If this movie performs like this, Marvel's is in massive trouble. The Marvels is in big fucking trouble. And Marvel in general, the MCU in general, I think they're going to have to hit the panic button at that point. They're going to have to if this movie underperforms.
Yeah, so if you're looking at this range, 105 to 125 million, something recently opened in that range, and it was Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, right? That opened to $106 million domestically. Ended up $464 million overall, right? Even if you're talking about, because the number everyone was looking at was the first or the second Guardians movie. That opened to $146 million. There's no way this movie is going to have a hold like that movie did. We don't see 50% holds from MCU movies anymore. But regardless, this is a movie that made $869 million. Also $100 million from China that you probably can't count on anymore. So even if Guardians makes $750, $800 million, volume 3, that would still barely break even. And that would be outlandish for them to reach at this point. What about a movie that did open to this in recent MCU? Thor: Love and Thunder opened to $144 million. This movie had a global take of $760 million. So when you're looking at the trends, when you're looking at recency bias with the MCU and what they have been doing, how these things have been performing despite big box office opening weekends, if Guardians doesn't even have that, if they don't have this big box office opening, and instead it's this low, this could be a movie that hits 600 million worldwide, maybe. And I don't know what to believe because it's hard for me to believe these are the real numbers. It's incredibly hard for me to believe that right now, the Thursday previews are tracking similarly to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I didn't think it was going to make $1 billion. I never thought that, but I did think probably 750, 800 million would be the range. But the projections we're seeing would put it much, much less than that. Yeah. I fully expect, this is what I think. I think that over this weekend, it's going to overperform these expectations. It's going to come around to like 140 or something. And people are going to try to praise. The media will put a spin on it. Oh, Guardians overperforms expectations, shows Marvel is back. That's what I think the spin will be if it does overperform at all. But the reality will be, how does that stack up? What does it mean long term? And $750 million with a $250 million budget, $750 million is essentially the break-even point for a movie like this. And that's
Yeah.
that's a tall task with this type of opening.
I'm all here for it. At the end of the day, I like these Guardians movies. I like this universe. I like what James Gunn has done, and I obviously big fan of Chris Pratt. I don't know, man. It's gonna be wild. And personally, Marvel deserve. I mean, obviously, Marvel deserves this. Marvel deserves all the backlash they're getting, and then some. And so they put themselves in this position, and we'll see how this weekend plays out. And obviously, we're gonna cover it Monday on Geeks and Gamers Daily.